one mistake, and the evil queen would kill him. A simple man hid 100 prophets from the killer queen. She wasn't just evil, she was merciless. A true hunter, and she wouldn't stop until every prophet was dead. Yet, every single night, one man kept them alive. Long ago, in the kingdom of Israel, there lived a man named Obadiah. He served as steward over the household of King Ahab, trusted with managing the king's entire estate. Yet, unlike the king he served, Obadiah feared the Lord with his whole heart. King Ahab ruled over Israel, but his wife held great power over him. Her name was Jezebel, a princess from Sidon who worshipped a false god named Baal. Through her, Ahab abandoned the Lord, and altars to Baal rose up across the land. Jezebel could not tolerate the prophets of the Lord. She viewed them as enemies of her gods, and she gave the order that every one of them be hunted down. Soldiers spread out across Israel, kicking open doors, searching barns and hillsides, dragging prophets out by their robes. Many were struck down where they stood, their bodies left as a warning to anyone who still called on the name of the Lord. Word of the killings spread from village to village, and a heavy fear settled over the land. But inside the very palace where Jezebel gave her orders, Obadiah worked secretly against her. Late at night, while the palace slept, he would slip out through a side gate, wrapped in a dark cloak, carrying baskets of bread under his arm. He moved quietly through the hills, glancing over his shoulder at every shadow, terrified that one of Jezebel's soldiers might be watching. He had gathered 100 prophets of the Lord and hidden them away in 2 caves carved into the rock. 50 men crammed into each. Surviving in darkness, every single day, Obadiah made this same dangerous journey, bringing them bread and water with his own hands, knowing that if he were ever discovered, his own head would be the next one rolling at Jezebel's feet. During this same time, the Lord sent a prophet named Elijah to stand before Ahab. Elijah told the king plainly that because of his sins, no rain or dew would fall on Israel except by his word. From that day, the sky over the kingdom turned dry, and it stayed that way. The drought stretched on season after season. Streams that had run for generations shrank into thin trickles, then disappeared completely, leaving cracked beds of dust where children once played. Farmers stood in their fields, staring at crops that had withered before they could even ripen. By the 3rd year, the famine had grown so severe that even Ahab's own horses and mules were dying for lack of food and water in their stalls. For those same 3 years, Ahab had been hunting Elijah relentlessly, blaming him for the disaster that had fallen on his kingdom. He sent riders galloping to every neighboring nation, pounding on the doors of foreign kings, demanding that Elijah be handed over the moment he was found. But the Lord kept his prophet hidden through it all. After 3 years, the word of the Lord came to Elijah again. The Lord told him to go and present himself to Ahab, for rain was finally about to return to the land. Around this same time, Ahab summoned Obadiah and gave him an urgent task. With the famine worsening by the day, Ahab needed every patch of grass left in his kingdom found before his animals dropped dead completely. He told Obadiah they would split up, each man searching a different stretch of land. Ahab rode out in one direction, and Obadiah set out walking in the other, moving slowly down a dry, dusty road, past abandoned wells and empty fields, his eyes scanning every hillside for even a single blade of green. As Obadiah walked, a figure suddenly stepped onto the road ahead of him, almost as if he had appeared from nowhere. Obadiah froze for a moment, squinting against the sun, and then his breath caught in his throat.
Before we continue, these videos take hours and hours to make. If you could please like and subscribe and comment which country you are watching from.
It was Elijah, the very prophet that Ahab and every king nearby had been hunting for 3 relentless years. Obadiah dropped to his knees and bowed his face to the ground before him, asking, "Is it really you, my lord Elijah?" Elijah answered him plainly, "Yes. Go and tell your master, Elijah is here." 1 Kings 18:7-8. Fear gripped Obadiah's chest at these words. He pictured himself standing before Ahab, delivering this news, only to have Elijah vanish into thin air the moment the king arrived, leaving him to pay for it with his life. He said to Elijah, "What have I done wrong, that you would hand your servant over to Ahab to be killed? As surely as the Lord your God lives, there is no nation or kingdom my master has not searched for you. Every time his men returned and said you could not be found, he made them swear an oath that it was true. And now you tell me to go and say you are here. I don't know where you might disappear to next. And if I go and Ahab cannot find you, he will kill me." 1 Kings 18:9-12. He reminded Elijah of what he had risked in secret, saying, "Was it not told to you what I did while Jezebel was killing the Lord's prophets? I hid 100 of them in 2 caves, 50 in each, and fed them bread and water with my own hands the whole time." Elijah looked at him steadily and said, "As the Lord Almighty lives, the one I serve, I will present myself to Ahab today." Obadiah rose to his feet and hurried back along the road, his heart pounding, until he found Ahab and told him that Elijah had returned. Ahab wasted no time. He mounted his chariot and rode out at once to meet the prophet he had hunted for 3 long years. When Ahab finally stood face to face with Elijah, he glared at him and said, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" Elijah did not flinch. He answered that it was not he who had brought trouble on Israel, but Ahab himself, by abandoning the commands of the Lord and chasing after Baal instead. Elijah then gave Ahab an instruction. He told the king to gather all of Israel, along with the 450 prophets of Baal, on Mount Carmel. Riders went out across the kingdom carrying the summons, and soon crowds of people climbed the mountain alongside the prophets of Baal, curious whispers passing through the gathering as they wondered what was about to happen. Standing before the crowd, Elijah told them plainly that they could not keep wavering between 2 gods. If the Lord was God, they should follow him. If Baal was God, they should follow him instead. The people said nothing, shifting uneasily where they stood. Elijah then proposed a test. 2 bulls would be prepared, one by the prophets of Baal and one by himself, each laid on wood upon an altar. Neither side would light the fire themselves. Instead, they would call out to their God, and whichever God answered by sending fire down from heaven would be shown as the true God before everyone watching. The prophets of Baal went first. They built their altar with trembling hands, careful to do everything exactly right, and laid the wood and the bull upon it. Then they began calling out to Baal, their voices rising together across the mountain from the early morning. Hour after hour passed, and nothing happened. By midday, some of them began dancing wildly around the altar, throwing their arms toward the sky. Elijah watched from a distance and began mocking them, telling them to shout even louder in case their God was sleeping or perhaps away on a journey. Stung by his words, the prophets grew frantic. They grabbed swords and spears and began slashing at their own arms and chests, blood running down their skin. Still, nothing answered. No fire fell. No voice spoke back to them. The mountain stayed silent except for their own desperate cries. As evening drew near, Elijah called the people closer to him. He took 12 stones, one for each tribe, descended from the sons of Jacob, and rebuilt the altar of the Lord that had long lain broken and forgotten. He dug a trench around its base, arranged the wood carefully on top, and laid the pieces of the bull over it. Then he told the people to fill 4 large jars with water and pour them over the offering and the wood, soaking it completely. And he told them to do it again a second time, and then a third. Water ran down over every piece of wood and stone, and the trench he had dug around the altar filled completely, leaving no possible way that any spark could survive on its own. At the exact time of the evening sacrifice, Elijah stepped forward in front of the entire watching crowd. He lifted his eyes toward the sky and prayed aloud, asking the Lord to answer him in that very moment, so that every person standing on that mountain would know once and for all that the Lord was God in Israel. The instant he finished speaking, fire dropped from the sky. It struck the altar with a force that made the crowd gasp and stumble backward, consuming the soaked sacrifice, the drenched wood, the stones themselves, and even licking up every last drop of water that had filled the trench around it. When the people saw this, they fell to the ground on their faces all at once, crying out together with one voice, "The Lord, He is God! The Lord, He is God!" Elijah immediately gave the order to seize the prophets of Baal. The crowd surged forward and grabbed them, dragging them down the mountainside to the Kishon Valley below, where every one of them was put to death that same evening. Afterward, Elijah told Ahab to go up and eat, for he could already hear the sound of a coming rainstorm. While Ahab climbed up to eat and drink, Elijah went to the very top of Mount Carmel, bent down low to the ground, and sent his servant to look out toward the sea. The servant returned and said there was nothing to see. Elijah sent him back again. 6 times the servant went and came back with nothing. On the 7th time, he came running back, breathless, saying that a small cloud, no bigger than a man's hand, was rising up out of the sea. Elijah sent word at once to Ahab, telling him to hitch up his chariot and ride down quickly before the rain trapped him on the mountain. Within moments, the sky turned black with thick clouds rolling in from the sea. The wind began to howl across the mountainside, and a heavy rain came pouring down over the land. Ahab's chariot raced down toward Jezreel as the storm broke loose behind him, soaking the parched ground that had waited 3 long years to feel water again. And so the land of Israel, after 3 years without a single drop of rain, finally watched its rivers begin to fill. Its soil softened beneath the downpour, and life slowly returned to a kingdom that had nearly starved.
These videos take hours and hours to make. If you could please like and subscribe and comment which country you are watching from.